Well, thank you, Rob. And I really want to thank Rob and Simon and all the folks at the Indiana, as I once knew them, the New Democrat Network in 1996. The group was formed the same year I got elected to Congress. And from that day forward, they have been the group in Washington, D.C., to my mind, who have been focused on new ideas, focusing on how to move the progressive movement forward, and focusing on trying to bring us all together to successfully do that. Simon's done a fabulous job on many, many issues. Most recently, he's done the work on the Hispanic Project, working with the Hispanic community to get them to vote for Democrats and also to work with them on their issues. I really appreciate the friendship I've had with him and with the work they've done as a group. Well, I think Mayor Booker said it best this morning about what makes America great, and that is hope. We have this steadfast belief in America that there's absolutely nothing we can't do if we put our mind to it. And that is unique in the world, and the rest of the world recognizes us for that and for our ability to do that. That was brought home to me actually during a forum I was doing recently on health care, talking with a bunch of different groups about health care issues, major issue for next year. And by the way, not what I'm here to talk about this morning, but if we're going to get access to health care to everybody in this country, we have got to figure out some way to get costs under control. That is a big piece of what we need to focus on, and that came up in the forum. And they mentioned how that in Europe, one of the ways that they spend less money on health care is because they are far more accepting of death, basically. They let it happen sooner. And I thought about this, whereas here in the U.S., we tend to fight it. Now, you can focus on that and health care costs, and a lot has been said about, it's the last 6 months of life that drive up the costs. But what I thought about was sort of the reason behind that. And I think the reason behind that is because in America, we honestly believe that if we just keep at it, we can even triumph over death. And it sort of struck me as sort of the perfect outlook for America. There's nothing we can't do. We're going to work very hard, and we're going to use hope to accomplish great tasks. Now, what I'm focused on this morning is the international impact of that, how the rest of the world looks at us. And for a long time, that uniqueness, that ability of America to accomplish great things really helped us internationally. I was always struck when I was reading about the Beirut crisis back in 1983, a book Tom Friedman wrote about it, how in 1983, when the Marines went to Beirut, it was universally viewed as a good thing. Sunni, Shia, everybody thought the Marines are coming, positive things are to follow. That's where we were at in America internationally at the time. People had that level of faith in us. Can anybody imagine now a time when it's announced that the Marines are going into a Muslim country when it's going to be viewed as a positive thing? It's not. In the last 8 years, we have lost our standing in the world. And a fundamental reason for that is the rest of the world thinks it's great that America can accomplish so much, that we have the talents, the ability, the resources. But what they worry about is, are we doing that for the overall advancement of the good of the world, or are we simply doing that to jam our interests down everybody else's throat? It's a very delicate balance, and we have crossed over that line, and we have lost faith with too many people in the world. And it undermines us on numerous foreign policy issues. In Iraq, trying to get other nations to come in and help us deal with that. In Afghanistan and Pakistan, the same issue. When dealing with Russia, the fact that the rest of the world no longer views us as that indispensable ally is a major problem. For crying out loud, we have lost a public relations war with Osama bin Laden. We lost a public relations war with that, before that, with Saddam Hussein. Well, one of the ways that I think we can get that back is by focusing on an issue that I am now working on because of my work on the Foreign Affairs Committee, but also on Armed Services, is on global poverty. And that's what Simon asked me to come and talk to you about today, is the importance of having a plan to go after global poverty and reduce it and to focus on global development in our foreign policy. I believe it is critically important and definitely in our best interest. And there are a lot of good things going on right now. We haven't been at a time like this in my lifetime where there was such an international focus on combating global poverty. You have a lot of private sector groups out there. In my own neck of the woods, the Gates Foundation is doing a lot of work. We've all heard of Bono and everything he is doing, but it's even branched out and been something that countries are involved in. The G8 is talking about it. We have the UN Millennium Goals. But what I want to see is I want to see the U.S. be the leader in combating global poverty. I've had a bill that the Indiana was kind enough to endorse, the Global Poverty Act, that would require the United States to adopt a plan within 1 year for meeting the Millennium Challenge goal, or Millennium Development Goal, of cutting in half extreme global poverty by 2015, to make us be the leader out there in actually getting global poverty under control. And there are a lot of different reasons that this matters to us. And it's not an easy sell, by the way. Your average constituent is far more focused on kitchen table issues, and I respect that. But I believe this is an issue that also impacts us. It impacts us in very, very clear ways. There's three sort of practical arguments, and then one I think is the ultimate argument. The practical arguments are, of course, security. One of the things that sparked my interest in global poverty was my chairmanship of the Terrorism Subcommittee on Armed Services. I do a lot of work with our special forces, Special Operations Command. I have jurisdiction over them in my subcommittee. They are very focused on the idea of how development can help them fight insurgencies. It's basic counterinsurgency strategy. If the locals in any given place throughout the world are happy with what is being provided for them, they are far less likely to focus on supporting an insurgency. So global security is important. Healthcare. We all know how quickly diseases spread now. If there are parts of the world that are in abject poverty, more subject to disease, that can far more easily spread. And then there's the basic economic argument, which was best summed up, I guess, by someone who wrote a book a few years back, I forget the gentleman's name, called The Fortune at the Bottom of the Pyramid. And he was arguing that basically we have 2.7 billion people living on less than $2 a day, which means they're not participating in the economy. If we can figure out some way to get them to participate, that would help us economically and grow the pie. It's sort of the, I guess, the globalized version of what Henry Ford said so many years ago. It doesn't make sense to have people making my cars who can't afford to buy them. Henry Ford was not being a philanthropist in saying that. He was saying, who's going to buy my cars? So he wanted to get your average industrial worker paid enough to participate in the economy. Well, I mean, the problem we had in the U.S. back then is relatively small compared to having 2.7 billion people in abject poverty. But the last argument, the one that I think we should emphasize the most, is the fundamental moral argument. It is just wrong that in a world that has been able to generate the amount of wealth and prosperity that it has, there are 2.7 billion people who wake up every morning wondering if they're going to be able to feed their family that day. And if there is a problem out there of that magnitude, and we can do something about it, any moral code of values that I have ever seen dictates that you do that. And we can. And I'm not even necessarily talking about spending more money. I think that's part of it. But just spend it more wisely. Get in there, get involved, and try to figure out how to be as effective and as efficient as possible in delivering poverty programs. And there are many ideas right now that we could take the lead on and go out there and make a difference on and actually, I believe, improve global poverty and along the way improve our standing in the world. The two incidents that have happened in recent history that most got the world to feel more positively about us were the tsunami from a few years back when we showed up and helped that part of the world down in South Asia that was so devastated by the tsunami, and in Pakistan, where frankly Pakistanis, in case no one told you, they don't like us. They don't trust us. They don't think that we're going to be helpful to them, and they think that if we are helpful to them, it is undoubtedly going to be a cynical pursuit of our own interests, and the second those own interests are gone, we'll abandon them at a time the way you spread any message. I don't think there is a magic bullet here. Now, the one campaign, one of the things that Bono is working on, is they're doing a nationwide advertisement. At this point, I think they're just messing with me with the light back there.
Okay.
But you know, you've got to do, they're doing a nationwide advertisement. They're doing it in Britain as well. And actually, one of the places where I think we could learn a lot from is in Great Britain, where they totally redid the way they did development assistance, made it a big part of the new Labour government, and this is not part of the reason why they're doing so poorly over there, by the way, and got the people of Great Britain to really care about global development and formed a new agency around it, and now they have a fair amount of support for it. And it all started with that sort of campaign on those issues.
Okay, one more question, the gentleman over there.
I was born in Beirut, Lebanon. I want to thank you for speaking about other nations with respect, not with hateful tone. And I just want to validate and say that every word you said was 100% true. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And this is something that is not going to factor in a big way in this campaign because it's a little bit nuanced and it's a little bit hard to work your way through. But when it comes to governing, how we approach the rest of the world, that comment there very well stated the difference. The neoconservatives who came out with the New American Century in the 1990s, the whole premise behind the New American Century was we are the world's sole remaining superpower. And for the next 100 years, our job is to make sure that it stays that way. Our job is to make sure that our interests are advanced. That is stupid. And it is stupid for a lot of reasons. In this whole world, we're going to maintain a dominant role. When you think about all the different countries, all the different peoples, the economies, the different interests, one country is going to dominate this world? It's not going to happen. I mean, even if we quadrupled the defense budget, there's no way we could possibly make it happen. Far, far wiser to look out at the rest of the world from our very strong position, which it was and still is, even if to a lesser extent, and say, how can we find partners? How can we find people to work with to maintain the stability and prosperity that we benefit more than anybody from? Let's look at the world. Let's look at Russia and China and the European Union, Brazil, India, other emerging nations. Let's get them involved so that they have a stake also in making sure that the world remains peaceful and prosperous. But we can't do that if our approach is we're going to do whatever is in our own best interest, and we really don't care about the rest of you. That was the unbelievable arrogance of the Iraq War. Joe Biden, who I heard this quote from, and it's now appropriate since he will hopefully soon be our vice president, said he remembered talking to people. I saw him give a speech about this back when the Iraq War started. The neoconservatives actually liked the fact that we were going it alone. They liked that the rest of the world didn't like we were going to do that. And you know what their argument was? Their argument was, if we do this with the whole rest of the world against us, if we do it, get it done, then they'll know they can't basically disagree with us, that we can do whatever we want. That is an incredibly dangerous way to approach foreign policy. I think we can do a lot better, and I absolutely know that Barack Obama will. So thank you for the chance to talk to you.